Today I'll be reviewing the 3 major roller coasters at Disneyland Park. I'll be reviewing them in order of how good they are, and I'll tell you some mini thoughts on each ride.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Alright guys, welcome back to another review. If you're new here and roller coasters are what you're into, then please consider subscribing for content all about roller coasters. The reasons why I'm combining the 3 mountains in one review are because to squeeze out more reviews, I just combined these 3 into one video. These rides also do pretty similar things, so the reviews are in order of how good they are, with the worst one being first and the best one being last. Our first mountain is Matterhorn bobsleds, and this coaster is very historic. It was the first ever roller coaster to utilize tubular steel track. All of the steel coasters we see today wouldn't be the same without this one roller coaster. So this coaster has a max height of 80 feet, no speed has been found, and the right side is a little longer than the left side at 2,134 feet. It opened in 1959 and it's manufactured by Iʻll Development. So you begin your ride experience by finding the entrance, which is very well made. I'd recommend the single rider line rather than the normal line unless you want to ride with friends. I rode this once on 2 different days, so I rode it 2 times. I think both times were on the right side, so if I ever get another chance, I'll try the left side. It is obviously the world's first steel coaster, so the track profiling is not good at all and it's not smooth at all. The worst part of this ride, in my opinion, is that one section inside the mountain because you go faster than normal and so the jerks are much harder on you. When I first rode it, I was scared of the Yetis and I didn't like how rough and jerky it was. But then when I rode it in 2018, I thought it wasn't so bad. It's not unbearably rough and the jerks were okay, except for that one part. But I know that if this ride has over-the-shoulder restraints, it would be much worse, but it actually only has a seatbelt. The capacity isn't the best, but the operations are very good. After timing it 3 times, I got an average of 12.6 seconds, which is really good. But my overall thoughts on this ride are, it's a really nice ride to look at, but not the best in terms of the ride itself. But I gotta give this credit for being the first steel coaster, because without this, steel coasters wouldn't be the same, and that's Matterhorn bobsleds. Our next mountain is Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. This ride is a mine train manufactured by Dynamic Attractions. This manufacturer isn't really known to make roller coasters, they make dark rides. There is no height recorded, but it has a max speed of 28 miles per hour, 2,671 feet of track, and opened in 1979. From my experience, out of the 3 mountains at Disneyland, this is probably the smoothest one in terms of track and the track profiling. It is a very tame ride, again, only 28 miles per hour, but I think this ride is a ride that is nice and long, and it's fun for the whole family. I don't think anyone would hate on this ride unless they live for intensity. Everyone in my family loves this ride. So this ride runs with a surprising 5 trains, and each train has 30 riders per train. So Disney probably knew that this ride would be a crowd pleaser, so they made the capacity really good, and it worked. The wait time for my most recent ride was only around 45 minutes. And from what I've ridden so far, this ride has my favorite queue line of any roller coaster I've ridden. You get really nice theming throughout the whole queue, and you can even watch the switch track turn because this ride does have a dual loading station. You could also watch the ride go through some sort of water feature and go into the brakes. You will get assigned your row, and there isn't a single rider line. This ride has 3 lift hills, and one thing to note is that on my most recent ride, I for the first time got stuck on the second lift hill. It was only for 15 seconds, but I thought it was a cool experience. I tried to calm down my GP friend and I guess it worked. The layout in general, I think is pretty similar to our next coaster coming up, but it's a little tamer. And just like the next mountain, I like how the turns on this ride are a mix of forceful turns and lateral turns. It really balances out the ride. You also don't really get much airtime either. I only got a few pops of float airtime, but this is a family coaster after all. But overall, this ride is a little tame, but a very good overall ride experience. And last but definitely not least is Space Mountain. Every single ride I had on this thing, it blew me away. It is surprisingly intense for a family-oriented coaster. Like Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, this ride's turns are a mix of lateral and forceful turns, making it have more variety. So when you start your ride experience, there's a single rider line. However, when I went, I was told the single rider line is closed. But then the second time I went on the trip, the single rider line was open. That line was also really hard to find. Apparently you have to go to the exit plaza where there's the on-ride photos, and you find a hallway a little to your left. that should be the single rider line. But if you go in the regular queue line, which on my visit it was only a 90-minute wait, you get an awesome view of Space Mountain that I bet a lot of people would take pictures of. The station on this ride looks really nice. There is a spaceship above the trains, and these trains basically have double the capacity of Matterhorn. The ride layout itself is pretty similar to Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, but it's executed better. The ride layout itself is pretty similar to Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, but it's executed better. It has 3 lift hills, but they're in a row separated by turns for theming purposes. The tiny drops have flojector and maybe even ejector airtime. There's one drop that has really good, almost like ejector airtime. The turns can be so forceful, it's amazing. You can feel the block brakes because it's just straight track. This ride does have a slight rattle, but besides that, this ride is really good for being a Disney coaster. So these are my thoughts on the 3 mountain coasters at Disneyland Park. Let me know down in the comments which one of these do you like the best. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like. I really appreciate it. And if you're new here and roller coasters are what you're into, then please consider subscribing for content all about roller coasters. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.